Today we're going to talk about one of the most famous speeches of all of time, JFK's Ich bin ein Berliner speech, which was addressed to hundreds of thousands of citizens of Western Berlin who are under constant threat from the communist nations at the time. Particularly, there's a persistent rumor that JFK accidentally referred to himself as a jelly donut while speaking in German while giving his speech. But is there any truth to this claim? So let's start with the background of how Berlin found itself in the situation it was in while JFK gave this famous speech. So after World War II, Germany was split into 4 occupation zones. Eastern Germany was given to the Soviet Union, while Western Germany was split between 3 allied nations, the United States, the United Kingdom, and France. Even though Berlin was well into the territory that was occupied by the Soviet Union, the city of Berlin was still divided up into 4 ways, similarly to how Germany was divided up. Eastern Berlin was given to the Soviet Union, and Western Berlin was occupied by the Allied forces. So the communists were never truly happy with the Allied forces occupying Western Berlin. And in fact, in 1948, the government of East Germany set up a blockade around the city of Western Berlin in an attempt to drive out Allied forces from the city. But instead of retreating, the Allied forces instead shipped 2.3 million tons of supplies by air to Western Berlin. The government of East Germany stopped the blockade just a year later in 1949. But this really helps us to demonstrate how high tensions were regarding the city of Berlin at the time of JFK's speech. So citizens who lived in Eastern Germany who wanted to flee to the West found it relatively easy to escape through Berlin, through Western Berlin. And in fact, between 1949 and 1961, there was an estimated 3.5 million people that immigrated away from East Germany through Western Berlin. This posed a significant problem for Western Germany because of a thing called the labor drain. All of the workers were leaving the country. And because of another thing called the brain drain, there was a disproportionate amount of highly educated people leaving the country. So people like doctors, teachers, engineers were all fleeing East Germany. So on August 13th, 1961, the government of East Germany set up the Berlin Wall, which was a wall that encircled the city of Western Berlin in an attempt to stop people from leaving through the city of Western Berlin. It was officially known as the Antifaschistischer Kurzwall, or the Anti-Fascist Protection Rampart. Officially, the reasoning behind the wall was they wanted to stop fascists, so-called fascists from the Western world, from entering into East Germany through Berlin and trying to undermine the state of East Germany. But it was widely understood that the wall was actually to keep people from leaving through Western Berlin. So the Berlin Wall was made of concrete and barbed wire, and it was patrolled by armed guards with instructions to shoot anyone who attempted to cross the wall without permission. So remember how I said that before the construction of the Berlin Wall, there was an estimated 3 million people who escaped through Western Germany. Well, after the construction of the Berlin Wall, in between the years 1961 and 1989, encompassing 29 years, only 5,000 people escaped through Western Berlin. That is a huge decrease in the amount of people that were able to escape through Western Berlin. And that leads us to John F. Kennedy arriving in Western Berlin. On June 26, 1963, John F. Kennedy appeared on the steps of the Rathaus Schönberg in Western Berlin in front of at least 120,000 people. Although some sources I read put the number around 400,000, like as high as 400,000. Either way, it was a very large amount of people at least 100,000. Around 1 minute and 30 seconds into his speech, John F. Kennedy says the following.
2,000 years ago, the proudest boast was Civis Romanus Sum. Today, in the world of freedom, the proudest boast is Ich bin ein Berliner.
Yay! 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 JFK also uses the phrase, let them come to Berlin, repeatedly in his speech.
There are many people in the world who really don't understand, or say they don't, what is the great issue between the free world and the communist world. Let them come to Berlin.
Yay! 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 So this speech was obviously meant to show support and solidarity with the people of Western Berlin, while also showing a clear message of disapproval to the government of East Germany and the rest of the communist nations. It greatly increased the morale of Western Berlin, and it went down as one of JFK's most remembered speeches. But let's go back and look at something that JFK said during his speech. Ich bin ein Berliner. The problem is that a Berliner is a type of jelly donut that's made throughout Germany. And many claim that JFK accidentally referred to himself as this type of jelly donut during the speech. What makes it confusing is that a Berliner can also, like the word Berliner, can also refer to someone that is from Berlin. People that claim that he made a mistake point out to JFK's use of the indefinite article ein. So in general, in the German language, most nouns use articles, but there are actually quite a few exceptions. So for example, with certain verbs, if a noun is a career or a profession, it won't need an article in front of it. In addition, languages, some countries and nationalities don't need an article in front of it, along with a bunch of more examples. It's not so much that it's incorrect to use an article in front of these words. It's more that it's not necessary, and it generally sounds more awkward if you do include an article in front of these nouns. So if you wanted to call yourself a doctor in German, or Arzt, you wouldn't say Ich bin ein Arzt. You would probably say Ich bin Arzt. And many people point to this rule as a reason why JFK made a mistake in his speech. And many people even claim that the audience watching JFK even laughed after he made this supposed error. The problem with the claim that JFK made a mistake while saying Ich bin ein Berliner, it has some problems. So this phrase, Ich bin ein Berliner, was actually written by JFK's translator, Robert Lochner, who was fluent in German. Another thing is that JFK actually practiced his speech in front of several native speakers before he presented it to the public, including the mayor of West Berlin. You would think that one of them would point out if he had made an error in his speech. And the audience actually didn't laugh after JFK said, Ich bin ein Berliner. The audience did laugh after he made a joke in his speech right after saying Ich bin ein Berliner.
I appreciate my interpreter translating my German.
So maybe there was some kind of mix-up there, but let's actually get into the meat and potatoes of why it's not actually incorrect to say Ich bin ein Berliner in this context. And even it's actually probably the preferred way. So if you wanted to say that you were literally a citizen of Berlin, that you literally live and were born in Berlin, you would say Ich bin Berliner. That is correct. But if you wanted to say that you were figuratively a Berliner, that you don't literally live in Berlin, you weren't literally born in Berlin, but you are with the people of Berlin, as JFK was trying to say in his speech. It would be more correct to say Ich bin ein Berliner. By including the indefinite article ein, what JFK is actually saying is, I am a kind of Berliner. So actually, it would probably be more correct to say Ich bin ein Berliner than Ich bin Berliner in the context of JFK's speech. So in conclusion, while JFK's Ich bin ein Berliner speech did greatly increase the morale of Western Berlin, while it did show a clear message against the Berlin Wall and the actions of the East Germany, while it did go down as one of JFK's most remembered speeches, it did not contain an error where JFK accidentally referred to himself as a jelly donut. There you go. Thank you for watching.
Freedom has many difficulties, and democracy is not perfect. But we have never needed to put a wall up to keep our people in, to keep them from leaving us.
Yay.